Did you go into the finale though thinking that you would win? Like, how confident were you that you were going to win?
Um, I think halfway through watching the season, I was like, oh, there's a chance of me winning. Because if truth be told, the second that I got announced and I knew that like I was deemed controversial by the fan base to a degree, which I think, kind of died down after, we had the episode where I talked about stuff with Queen. I was like, okay, maybe people will come around to me and, maybe it could be a possibility. Um, but watching the finale, it was the fact that I actually kind of felt a little bit in the finale, if I'm honest. I felt like by the end I just knew I like it was the Jaffa lunch that I knew I'd not won. Um, it was because they didn't even offer me the Jaffa. I was like, but I did get offered the Jaffa, and we had such a great conversation, Real Michelle, about so much, and it was just all gone. Like everything about I went into the finale hoping that I would they would showcase a bit more of my personality and a bit more of my story, because as I was watching the season, I felt like there was a lot of my story cut. And when I was on the runway and stuff, and they were doing critiques, Spanky was always bouncing back with them, and Minnie was bouncing back with them. But I was doing the same thing. I had them in stitches, and I was making them laugh, but it all got cut, and I looked like a robot. I felt like a bit like like just standing there and go, oh, thank you. And I was like, well, where's like, I was making them laugh and I was like enjoying it. And that was hard watching that because I was like, you've cut out like my personality and like some of my story that I hoped that it would be there in the finale. And when the finale came out, no, and I'm by no means saying that my edit was bad or I'm like anything like that. But like the whole idea of me being this perfect, polished, put together, you know, no flaws, does everything perfectly kind of idea of who I um, was really sort of hard to swallow because I'd been doing therapy to try and sort of squash this idea of perfection. And I was saying that as I was going through it, I was like, yes, I'm good at what I do, and I really like to put my best foot forward, and I like to make sure that everything I do is of a really high quality. But I'm unafraid to fail. I'm unafraid to, fall down by the wayside a little bit. And like, just because things don't go the way that they're meant to go, you know, like I'm really kind of trying to challenge this idea of perfection. And so I was saying this through the whole season, but then it was exactly what they gave me in the edit. And they said she's perfect, she polishes this, and it just got me so angry because I was like, I've been trying to challenge this, and I was saying this through the whole season that this is what I'm trying to challenge and showcase me more as a human being rather than a robot. And when it came out, I was so angry. I was like, what the you've cut everything out again of me as a person. So I knew I wasn't winning. And I rang the therapist the next day and I was like, why did they do this? And she's like, maybe it's the perfectionist in you that's having this reaction. And I was like, how dare you? Yes, it is, probably. But so it's very multi-layered. I have a love-hate relationship with the finale. I love it because I got to do it with Queen and Spanky, and I love our song, and I loved everything about it. But also, I was a bit because they made me look like I didn't really know my choreography very well at points, and I was like, I was on fire that day, and like they just cut. It was a weird cut. I wanted more wide shots, but here I am nitpicking and trying to produce the show. But what do I know?
No, I think everyone's going to love your brutal honesty because, yeah, it did come across slightly robotic in the sense that yeah, like they didn't show that much of your person. Like you were funny and you were really polished on the runway, but if you look at the season, for someone who got to the finale, you didn't actually have always that much face time and screen time. They did kind of. I can see what you're saying about them cutting you out of a lot of stuff, and yeah, it must be disappointing when you have an idea of what actually happened in real life in when you were there, and then what
Yeah.
gets shown is completely different. So, unfortunately, I guess that's just
That's
editing and the show.
editing, yeah, and they've got a narrative of what they want to share. I think the hard thing and that what made me feel kind of a little bit sort of betrayed by the situation is that, and I suppose this happens with all reality TV, is that they break you to a point where they get you to share some really, really hard, difficult things and share these stories about your life. And I'm an open book. Like, I hope I've showed you today. Like, I talk about anything. And I shared a lot of stuff about my life and about my family and about my friends and stuff that I think is important for people to hear and know about. And I let my guard down a lot with them. And they got me to a complete mess a couple of times, just by sort of getting these stories out of me. And then I felt like, oh, it's all for nothing. Like, what did you want it for? Like, because you must have, to the point where, like, as the episodes went on and they sort of started having a clearer vision of who's going to be there in the finale, I don't know, why would you torture someone with, going through their childhood traumas if you didn't want to use it, or you didn't, well, you know what I mean? Like, it's a very tough pill to swallow, is that you go in there thinking that you're showing them everything about you, and then they make you look like a bit of a robot. And I found that very, very challenging. And I think, like, coming out of the show and now living in the real world where it's done and it's, I'm a part of the show's done and whatever, and we're touring, I feel like it's now hard for me to sort of navigate this space, with the character that they've created of who I am, and trying to navigate, people's perceptions of me. And I found it very interesting being on tour that, people go, oh, you're very different to what I thought you were going to be like. Or you're so much nicer, or you're more funny in person. And I find that really difficult because that's always who I've been. It's now just because the show's shown me this way, I'm now like, oh, now I have to try and write that sort of idea of what people have of me in their brains when I meet them, which is an extra layered challenge.
Yeah, it's a bit like getting the villain edit, but in reverse, that you were kind of given the non-existent edit or the robot edit.
Yeah, and I feel like I think there's been queens like that I've seen, like for the UK, like Ella Vidae, like she's not like anything like she is on the show. I met her and I was like, you're really fun and fabulous, but she kind of got that, like, you're perfect, you're polished, you're too good at everything. You know what I mean? And I don't like, I don't know, but they always like a fixer-upper on Drag Race, don't they? And maybe I'm just, I don't know. Maybe they can fix me up in an All-Stars. I don't know.
I think, yeah, definitely. I think I could tell there was more to you than what they showed. And it's, you can't judge a queen by the way they edit you, whether it's a villain edit or like a robot edit, whatever. You've got to sort of meet the queen and actually speak to them to know what they're like and everything. So I guess you still got to the finale. That's still such an achievement. And obviously a bit of shame you didn't get the edit that you wanted, but I guess at least you didn't get a villain edit.
Well, that's true.
Maybe on some of the edits.
Well, I had a moment, but I did go in and I was like, oh no, there's no way they can make me a villain. I'm too nice. But we saw anything is possible, kids. So when I got the call, I was like, hey, what details do you got for me? And they were like, hey, you're cut. So I was like, it was brutal. It was so brutal. And I was heartbroken. It was one of the things that I like to say that I think it's really funny. I think foreskin balloon farts are very funny, especially when you're in drag, because you tuck so hard that, when you fart into your foreskin, it goes, and it blows up. Because that kind of got brought. Oh, no, I've spilt water everywhere. It's okay, babes. We're fine. We're fine. I just get myself really wet sometimes.